Welcome to week 129 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Hello.
We finished episode 624 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Monday, January 12th, 1987. Gina presses Keith on how he's going to take over Capwell Enterprises. Keith's contact calls him to say that the hostile takeover failed. But Keith pretends it succeeded, and Gina still believes him. Gina tells Sophia she needs to talk to Cece right away. Jeffrey asks Gina if she's going to the opening of Johnny's tonight. She says she has other plans. She returns to the Capwell Hotel, and Keith has a hard time keeping his hands off her. Once again, Gina becomes suspicious and decides to check the secret room to see if they are being filmed through the mirror. But she confirms there is no camera on the other side. However, when Gina leaves the room, Keith opens the curtains and waves to someone across the street. So clearly Keith is planning to record Gina violating the terms of her agreement with Cece in case he needs some other way to make money, I think. He positions her on the couch so that her face will be properly visible. And then she turns off the lights, and he turns them back on. And we don't see what happens after that. So possibly the mystery filmer got something to film.
Yes, we'll see what he has to hold over her.
Cruz dusts Gus's room for fingerprints. Eden arrives, and she says she's going to Brick's place tonight. Cruz's informant, Alvin Squibb, I think was his name, meets with him and Julia about someone who might be prone to robbing restaurants. I think they said he's in San Francisco, though, so may not be our thief. Eden shows up at Cruz's place just after he comes out of the shower, just to ask if he's going to Johnny's. He says that he's going with Julia, and she says, "Oh yeah, I'm going with my family." Julia finds Mason asleep on the couch in his office, and when she takes the book off his chest, he accuses her of snooping. So this rift in their relationship is widening, I think, with every episode. Eden visits Mason to find out if she will be needed to testify after all, and he says no, he's got enough evidence without her testimony. However, Eden says that Cruz thinks that money bag was planted. Mason gets the results of the fingerprint report. Now, it's not clear if this is a different fingerprint report than the one Cruz took, or if the police did their own fingerprint report, which you would think they would do. But Mason gets the results, and I don't think it was conclusive. Mason tells Eden that Sophia should not be talking to Kelly, because he's overheard that some calls had been made to Switzerland in recent days. Jane finds Carolyn sitting in the dark at the Lockridge mansion. She is sad about Alice. Jane says her instinct is telling her that Carolyn is connected to Alice and her father somehow, and that Ollie just doesn't fit into the story. Carolyn reveals that Ollie is not Alice's mother. And then Jane says, "It's you, isn't it? You're Alice's mother." So that suddenly got revealed out of nowhere, unexpectedly.
I would think it wasn't really that hard for her to put together.
I think, the thing is that Jane had never really let on, at least on screen, while we were watching, that she suspected anything like that. Although she was the one who said, you and Gus fight a lot, so that probably was what got her wheels turning.
I would think we don't get into it at all in the show really, but that she might have some childhood memories which maybe conflicted a bit with the idea that,
Yeah, maybe the way Gus and her were together
Yeah.
Reminded her of all the other guys that Carolyn lived with for periods of time. Johnny's grand opening. We got balloons.
And my goodness, have they spruced it up. It doesn't look at all like Buzz's anymore.
No. And Brick has hired Alice to be a waitress, so that's nice. Wonder how many other cast members will end up working there.
It actually reminded me a bit. I thought, oh, they must have gotten the design team in from Dynasty to do it, because it reminded me a bit of Fallon's Hotel in Dynasty.
Definitely swankier than Buzz's for a waterfront joint that probably still smells like clams even after a thorough fire. Sophia gives him a nameplate for his desk that reads Brick Walls, Proprietor. Jeffrey arrives and mentions the last time he was here was Burned Out Shell, because I guess he's been recuperating since then. Brick tells Jeffrey about Amy dying the night of the fire. And Jeffrey says, I don't know how you do it. If it was me, all I could think about was revenge. So I feel like that makes me think he wants to take some kind of revenge on Mason. That's what I'm getting from that, and that he's not going to drop it, whatever it is.
Made me think that I hope they had a little plaque or something up for Amy somewhere in the new restaurant.
That's a good idea. There was a couple of good jokes about Johnny not being here to that night because he has a drinking problem. Jeffrey asks if he can play the piano. Maybe that'll be his permanent gig. Although, wasn't Cece going to get him a job or something? So maybe not. Maybe he'll do two things. Maybe he'll suddenly be working at Capwell Enterprises and at night playing piano in Johnny's. Julia and Cruz, of course, are at the party together, and Julia tells Cruz, you can go talk to Eden since this is not a real date. Mason ends up dancing with Julia, trying to smooth things over a little bit between them. And later, while he's sitting alone, he gets the sense that Jeffrey is staring at him and turns around. And Jeffrey says, I just stare off into space when I'm playing. But of course, he was staring at Mason the entire time that we could see. Alice tells Sophia there's a call from Cece. Gina and Keith arrive and get wind from Alice that Cece's on the phone with Sophia. And then Gina tells Sophia when she returns that she wanted to talk to Cece about the takeover. Sophia says, so that's what you've been worried about all day? You're worried that you'll lose your fortune if Cece had lost his company. Sophia said, Gina says, had lost? I thought he lost it. But Sophia reveals that the takeover was foiled, and Gina punches Keith in the stomach. Keith explains that he was just hedging his bets on whoever was going to end up winning.
He's still possibly got his pictures, so he can fall back on that.
He's got a lot of bets to hedged bets. The robber is at the party. I think maybe he plans to rob Johnny's after the successful opening night. Brick brings Cruz a note from the informant, and it seems like it's a warning that the robber's going to try to rob Johnny's tonight. So everyone's on the lookout. The robber follows Eden outside. I don't know if he's trying to gauge if she recognizes him. I think they chat briefly too, even. But what she does notice is a huge diamond ring on his hand, which, of course, is what Cruz had asked the staff of the Orient Express to watch out for. Eden runs inside and tells Cruz, and I think kind of obviously, because I think the robber catches wind that Eden and Cruz are talking. As he comes in, he immediately leaves again. And Cruz follows him outside. And without being told to, Eden, of course, also goes outside. And Cruz is looking. Did I mention how foggy it is again on the docks? Cruz is looking around. He sees Eden in the foreground. And then we see a gun being raised. And do we hear the gunfire? I don't even remember because my sentence ended unexpectedly because I was so excited by the cast credits that I started typing those. But the reprise will clearly start there, and we'll find out if there's a gunshot, if Eden is in peril, if someone else is in peril. Now, the cast credits had an interesting glitch in them. Jake Morton as Rick Edwards was not in the credits this time, so I don't know if they jumped the gun putting him in last time or if they messed up this time and didn't include him. And the thief, once again played by Sam Scarber, but his credit has changed from thief to robber. So I guess it makes sense. I believe thievery is if you break in somewhere and take it, but robbery is if you hold someone up in person. I think so. And the other person in the credits is Keith's man, Jim Warren. Now, this is interesting because Keith's man was just on the phone, right, with Keith, whereas Mr. Squibb, Cruz's informant, actually had scenes. So I wonder why this guy got a credit and the other guy didn't, unless they're one and the same, which would be a really weird turn of events. And I don't know if he's just making money from two different people in an unrelated way, or if there's some twist to this. So anyway, we'll see in upcoming episodes if they're meant to be the same person or not, and probably we'll never find out why the other guy didn't get his credit. And that is it for the first episode of week 129. It's the second week in January, and we'll be back after Tuesday's episode, number 625. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
You double-crossed me. You lying, conniving.
What are you talking about? We've been double-crossing each other ever since we met. That's no reason to get so nasty now.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 625 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Tuesday, January 13th, 1987. Cruz is shot by the robber. Cruz fires back, and the robber is wounded. He makes his way to his car, but it won't start, so he walks to Gus's room instead, where he cleans his wound. At least I'm pretty sure it's Gus's room. It's got the same layout and everything, and, makes sense that if he can't get home, he'd go somewhere that he is, knows he can break into. And also, if it's a poor part of town and he's leaving from the docks, that those areas are probably kind of near each other, I guess.
Now, I was trying to remember watching this scene if we had some kind of explanation before. Did he manage to pocket Gus's key as he got a way in?
I'm wondering if he just broke in again because he knew it was close by and he knew it was easy to get into or something.
I guess so. I just feel like, they already know he's been there once and he left behind the bag. I would think you'd want to change the locks or do something.
Yeah. It looks like this guy got hit in the leg. I'm worried a bit about Alice coming home from work, if she's still living there. It's not. I think she is, right?
Yeah,
she insisted on moving
a lot
back in.
Foreboding, that something was going to happen to her if she insisted on.
That's true, and everyone's constantly saying it's a bad neighborhood. Yeah. So that could be Alice could stumble in and find him. Yeah, that makes sense. Cruz tries to stop Eden from helping him look for the shooter. Mason tries to stop Cruz from looking for the shooter. Paul is surprised that Cruz has even involved himself. And Cruz says that it's his right as a citizen. Cruz, by the way, has a wound on his forehead from the exchange of gunfire. But it doesn't seem to be as bad as the robber's wounds. Mason is still sure that Gus is responsible for the Orient Express robbery, regardless of this other man having shot Cruz for apparently no reason. Cruz and Eden call the hospitals. There are two payphones, and they have a dueling hospital calling sessions to try and find a man who has been shot that has the same description as the robber, but they have no luck there. They're kind of doing, I think they're both kind of enjoying working together on this thing. And later Eden changes the bandage on Cruz's head. I'm not sure where they were. I think, were they back at the beach house? Let me just check where the bandaging scene happened. No. Somewhere else. Somewhere at Johnny's, I guess. Carolyn admits to Jane that she is Alice's mother, as Jane had guessed. Jane is annoyed that it took her so long to tell her, and she realizes that Alice is the reason she came to Santa Barbara, not Jane. she's annoyed with her mom, but I think she wasn't as angry, I think, as she might have been. I feel like there's a chance, that could blow over a bit.
I think what's maybe even a bit more telling, at least from my perspective, is she didn't seem entirely surprised either.
Yeah, it's just, that's how her mother is, I guess. Jane goes to Johnny's, and Brick says that she can go in the back and talk to Alice, but then Jane changes her mind and says, I'll talk to her, tomorrow, which is good, because Alice is not in this episode, so it was actually kind of a tricky way of the writers to explain why wouldn't Jane go to talk to Alice, but then also, she did, but then she changed her mind, so... makes sense now. They can defer that conversation until the next episode, which presumably Alice will be appearing in. And then, sadly, she might go home and discover the robber. Warren is working out in the Lockridge Games room. I don't know if we've ever seen this room before.
I don't know. I mean, I seem to remember very early on in the series we would sort of see Warren working out, but I don't quite remember this room.
No, this room has a dartboard. It's got Warren's little hand weights. It's got one of those boxing bags, not the big one, but the tiny one. Got a shelf or two with what looks like board games on it. So that's, a well put together room, I think, for something new. Lionel arrives because he's planning... to have a night of dancing with Carolyn. I think there's a stereo in that room too as well. So Warren apologizes to Lionel for overreacting when he first got there. And he says he realizes that Lionel filled the house with all these people because he was probably lonely, which is probably true.
And we do hear just a reference to Augusta, where Lionel says, well, this is the way she wants it, or whatever. And I just found that really interesting, because when Augusta first leaves, she seems to be coerced, and then, we saw like a Thanksgiving, episode where it seemed like she was just happily living somewhere else, and people were visiting her, and now we're hearing that, this is what she wanted. So
yeah, because Lionel,
very ambiguous.
Lionel asks Warren, does she ever talk about it? And Warren says, nope. So that doesn't imply that they're not in contact. It's just that she doesn't talk about Lionel. So hopefully when Louis Sorel returns someday, we'll actually find out what happened. Hopefully they don't drop it.
Yeah, I hope not, because, the last we saw of Augusta, wasn't she hiking up a mountain or something?
Yeah. Warren goes to Johnny's, and Jane tells him that she just had a fight with her mother. He tells her that he's recently had a lot of therapy and may be able to help her. Warren says, do you fight a lot? And Jane says, only when we're together. Warren tells Brick that he did a nice job with Johnny's, and he gives his condolences for what happened to Amy.
And, I'm almost wondering if, we started out at La Mesa, and then it was the State Street Bistro, and then we were doing a lot of stuff in Buzz's for a while, and the Orient Express. I'm wondering if Johnny's is going to be the next in place. Of course, there was the casino as well, but it just seems like they spent a lot on this set.
And we did see that New Year's Eve club that they went to briefly, whose name I've already forgotten. So that could potentially make a return, and they seem to have put some work into it. I don't think our new Warren has met Minx yet. No, we haven't seen Minx yet this calendar year. So I'm looking forward to Minx seeing Warren, but maybe they're waiting for something else before that happens. Carolyn tells Lionel that Jane knows she's Alice's mother. How did she take it, Lionel says. And Carolyn says, everything I was afraid of happened. Lionel then tells Carolyn. He's planning a night of dancing. A night of silliness is what he calls it, but it all seems to be tangoing until 2, which seems like a lot of work, actually.
It does seem like a very Lionel thing to do, though.
Yeah, he's got a hat, and he has a rose for Carolyn. He tells Carolyn, I couldn't get a mantilla, and I didn't know what that was, so I looked it up, and it's one of those sort of silk or lace shawls that kind of goes like over the shoulder that I can now imagine Carolyn wearing well. She's got a rose in her mouth. So even though she's kind of not in the mood to dance, she says, I'm not in a good mood. I wouldn't have been a very good tango partner. But, they end up just hugging. So we'll see how their night goes. Jeffrey continues to play piano and scowl at Mason whenever he walks by.
Mm-hmm. And he makes a point of not playing Mason's request.
Mm-hmm. Mason comes to him at the end of the night as he's wrapping up and said, you never played that song. And Jeffrey says, I realized I didn't really know it, which is clearly a lie, and Mason sees that. So he knows that Jeffrey hates him for some unknown reason. Brick tells Jeffrey he's very good and wonders if he studied, and he said he did a little, but then he ran out of money. Brick asks him to play Amy's favorite song, which he does know. So it seems like Jeffrey may have been from a family that didn't have a lot, or maybe ran on hard times. I'm wondering, maybe something the Capwells did to his family caused them to lose their money, and maybe that's why he doesn't like the Capwells or Mason. Maybe it was something Mason did when he was
it seems to be very
Capwell.
specifically Mason directed.
Mm-hmm. Keith reveals to Gina that he had a camera outside the window of the hotel room with a telephoto lens. And Gina says, haha, but you remember I turned off the light before anything good happened. Which kind of makes Keith a little sad because he realizes he doesn't have anything he can use against Gina, or at least to get some money out of Cece. Brick shows up with Keith's credit card, and he very happily tells him that it's been declined. And then Gina pays. Although Brick later apologizes for making it seem like he was happy about that. He tells Gina that he blew all the money Cece had advanced him in the failed takeover bid. So Gina says, poor Keith, soon he's going to be living with the homeless under that fig tree on Highway 101. I wonder if there is a famous fig tree on Highway 101 in Santa Barbara. Mason calls Cece on that payphone to tell him that both Sophia and Eden have been calling Kelly, and he should put a stop to that. He does clam up when Keith and Gina approach that part of the bar, and Gina tells Keith they do that a lot. I'm sure they're planning something, and I think it's got something to do with Kelly. Well, Keith says if they can prove that Mason knows where Kelly is, he can get his job back as DA. He wants Gina to throw in with him on this plan, and Gina says, well, what's in it for me? And he says, if Kelly comes back, they'll both get thrown out of the Capwells' lives. And Gina agrees that they wouldn't be trying to bring Kelly back unless they think they can clear her. So Keith suggests that the best thing they could do is to grab Kelly themselves and have her put behind bars where she belongs, I think he says, which is odd, since I think they both know she doesn't belong there. And then he'll be a hero with the voters, and with Kelly facing murder charges, Cece will agree to anything. A new marriage contract, perhaps. Keith?
I feel like we're seeing the birth of dueling kidnapping plots.
Oh, that's true. I didn't really put that together. Yeah, that's a good point. And as Santa Barbara's plots often go off the rails, I'm not sure which of the two will succeed or fail, or if the third thing will happen. I guess my concern is Kelly could get injured, which was Sophia's concern. And now we've got 2 kidnappers potentially endangering Kelly. But the one kidnapping is supposed to be happening in Switzerland, I'm pretty sure, because Cece said something about the village, or no, Cece's man said something about, doing it on a Sunday or a holiday so the villagers don't, try to get involved, something like that. I hope this starts happening soon.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, you were saying if Kelly could get injured, and I was thinking, well, how badly injured would really depend on what other movies Robin Wright, I guess, has in the pipeline.
I think she'll be back for a while. Keith suggests, to be safe, Gina should tell him where that tape is hidden. He grabs his face and he whispers something to her, and we don't hear what that is. So I don't know if it's about the tape, because I think Gina pretty much said, no, I'm not doing that, or if he's got some other thing that he's whispered to her. So,
or if it's just the actors ad-libbing at the
yeah,
end of a hard day.
I think people really like. I think Cruz, Martinez mentioned on that cruise we were on, that Justin Dees would bring some exciting new things to scenes that no one expected. So, and that's it for this episode. It was a Tuesday, but originally would have been a Monday episode, and it seems to have quite a lot of fun stuff in it, and stuff that may launch other things that are happening. And I will tell you that today was the final episode for another actor, and we will never see that actor or character again. And this is now 4 people who've left the show in the last month, and it hasn't actually been mentioned by any actors and or characters. And in fact, they're all still in the credits. So it's possible that the writers just stopped writing for certain people and are just going to let their contracts run out, which could explain why they're still in the credits. So
I do have a little hint as to who some of them are.
Oh, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm not going to give it away.
Oh, okay.
But my hint comes from the way you label your files.
Oh. Oh, yes, that's true. I do try to put some spoiler information replaced with the word spoiler, but of course I had one that said first episode of so-and-so, when Jeffrey came, and perhaps one of the ones from this week I accidentally did not relabel, and it might give a clue. So anyway, once they are removed from the credits, I will then reveal that actor and or actress is gone. So anyway, we will be back after we've watched episode 626 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
What's the matter, big spender? Having a problem?
Stay out of this.
Poor Keith. Pretty soon he's going to be living among the homeless under that fig tree on Highway 101.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 626 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Wednesday, January 14th, 1987. And yesterday you told me who your guesses were for the 4 cast members who've left. You had guessed Courtney, Brian, Lily, and Santana. And I can tell you that 3 out of those 4 is correct. So we'll talk about this when they finally disappear from the credits, or someone mentions that so-and-so has left town.
Well, I know that Santana will come back in at least another form. It's been so long since we've seen this version of her.
And she wasn't at the opening of Johnny's.
No, which is bizarre, since they were kind of setting her up with Brick.
Mason visits Victoria and accuses her of being more worried about Cruz being shot than her own baby. The shooting is on the cover of the newspaper that is in Victoria's... well, it's a house, really. I thought it was an apartment, but it's a house. We see when Mason approaches that he's actually from outside, and she's got 2 stories in it. So, Mason leaves, and much like Victoria with Santa Barbara, he comes back later and apologizes for being such a jerk earlier in the day. And he reveals that he's having a lot of trouble with the Gus Jackson case. And Julia is part of that reason. So this is something he's not let on either to Julia or to the viewer until this point. That he actually is a bit concerned that Eden's pulled her identification of the tape. And that Julia may in fact best him. Maybe she should be the new DA. Much as Keith is hoping that he will be again.
Yeah, I mean, Keith might be a little too clever for his own good. He might get Mason booted out of the DA's office and not get himself put back in.
Always the fun date, Mason reads Victoria his opening statement for the Gus Jackson case. And she is as excited about that as she was about those juggling clowns that he got for her a few weeks ago. So he of course, is admonishing her once again for stepping outside of her door for a second because he wants her to have complete bed rest. And as soon as he leaves, she phones the courthouse to find out when the Gus Jackson trial is because she wants to see Mason in person. So I think she is falling for Mason at this point.
And, you know, if she goes, which I assume she will because that will be maximum drama, but it's going to cause a lot of rumblings, not just with Mason and, of course, Julia, but we know that Eden's going to be there as a witness, and we know that Cruz has been actively working on the case as well. So.
I think it might even throw Julia off to have Victoria sitting there.
Yeah.
Carolyn tells Jane the story of how she and Gus moved around from one racist small town to the next. With a 1-year-old Jane while she was pregnant with Alice. She tells Jane that Gus loved her and gets her to remember her favorite childhood doll that Gus bought her. Jane then visits Gus in prison and finds out the rest of the story. That when Gus went to prison, the authorities contacted Carolyn before sending Alice to the mental institution, but Carolyn never returned their call. Lionel appears only briefly in this episode for about 2 seconds as Jane runs past him in order to find Carolyn. Jane confronts Carolyn and says, "Nothing you say can justify leaving Alice in that hospital. I'm going to make sure you never hurt anybody again." What does that mean? Usually that means a murder on other soaps, but I think that just means she's going to tell Alice the whole story and make sure she stays away from Carolyn by doing so. Otto tells Kelly, "Your skis are waxed and ready to go." Kelly is expecting a package from her family, and Otto says that it's likely they haven't forgotten your birthday is tomorrow, and you'll be home soon. So I don't know why I think she'll be home soon. Otto's not the one that Mason sent ahead to warn Kelly that she's going to be kidnapped, so not sure why Otto thinks Kelly will be home soon. Mason argues with Ted about the family constantly calling Kelly, and says that he doesn't think it's a good idea for Ted to call Kelly for her birthday tomorrow. Ted tells Haley that since things are going so well between them, they might even have a real marriage someday. Oh, I think that would have been nice before Jake showed up in town. Bad feeling about him. Jake arrives to return Ted's wallet and ends up asking Haley to give him a tour of the Capwell stables because Mason has asked Ted to go all the way up to Ojai and come back from the top into Ventura to go to a special bank to withdraw cash to give to the guy that Mason wants to send to Switzerland to warn Kelly about the impending kidnapping. So that leaves Haley and Jake together for hours, and they end up back at the Abernathy stables, where Jake finally talks Haley into letting him giving her first riding lesson.
And all through this, Haley's supposed to be registering for college. which for some weird reason Jake's trying to talk her out of, which is strange to me.
He says stuff like, "Oh, is that Capo trying to get you to better yourself?"
So, that's a bit of a red flag to me, apart from everything else. But I kept thinking about myself registering for college, probably around the same time, maybe a year earlier. And if you miss your courses, you're not getting much of anything. Especially back then, it wasn't online at all.
I know. I remember we went into a hall where I went. Okanagan College went into a hall, and each professor, presumably, I don't know, maybe a TA, was sitting behind a desk with a sheet, and the name of the course was stuck to the front. And it was a scramble, and you had like your top pick, your second, third, fourth, fifth, and you lined up for the ones you thought were going to be problematic, especially if, you were trying to get, your course, some of the ones had two offerings, but you wanted it at a certain time because you wanted to try and get your schedule to be half decent and not spend 6 hours in between classes just hanging around campus doing nothing. So, I have a feeling tomorrow when Haley tries to register, she may not quite get everything she wanted.
No, and this would have been, as I remember, I went to Capilano College in North Vancouver. This was a full morning and afternoon project.
Mm-hmm. Because when you race to that table, you get in line behind 30 people, right? And then you're like, okay, that line's small, I'll go to that one next, or that one's huge, but I think they're offering six calculus ones or whatever. So. And
you're juggling the printed out course guide and probably a notebook to do some quick calculations because they're constantly running up, posting on the wall in paper what is now being filled up. So, so Haley's probably out of luck for college for most of her courses just by taking the day off.
Jake tells Haley a bit about himself. His father was a gambler and a drunk and beat his mom sometimes. So hopefully we won't see the Morton family in the future.
No, but he and Haley bond a little bit over this story because, of course, she doesn't come from the most illustrious family either. So in some ways I had a feeling she was probably relating a little bit more to Jeff than she has with Ted.
Mm-hmm. Haley returns home quite sore and tells Gina that Jake gave her a riding lesson, and Gina, sizing up Jake, says, "I bet he did. Maybe I should take a riding lesson from that guy." Haley tells Gina that tomorrow is Kelly's birthday, so she has gotten some info for Gina, because Gina had been trying to get Haley to find out some info about Kelly from Ted, and she said, "I'm not going to spy for you." Ted comes home and wants to go for a 5-mile jog. Haley does not want to tell him that he is still very sore from her first riding lesson. So we last see him dragging her out the front door, but I feel like I don't know if she's going to get very far. We'll see tomorrow maybe.
And I felt like there was a very limited number of people who would find that enticing.
Yeah.
Just in general.
Well, remember they met jogging on the beach, so
true.
They both like jogging, so we do know that. So Gina follows a stray cat into the basement of the Capwell house. Now, we've seen the attic once when Kirk was typing up there. I don't think we've ever seen the basement at all. And what does she find? She finds a guy living down there. It's Keith Timmons. He's got no money. He's living down there. And he's hired a man named Weasel to set up a tape recorder and to tap the Capwell phones, because this is his last shot to try to blackmail the Capwells by finding out if they've been in contact with Kelly and being able to prove it. And he's paid Weasel $500 for this setup. But for an extra few hundred, Weasel will make it so that the tape recorder comes on automatically when someone places a call. As it is, Keith has no more money, and Gina does not want to front him the cash. And I think actually Gina's probably pretty cash poor. She's just able to charge things like clothes and things, but I don't think Cece gives her cash up front. So they are stuck with having to rush over to this tape recorder and turn on record when someone is making a call. And you just know this is going to rear its head in the future. Gina tells him it's Kelly's birthday tomorrow. And they conclude, well, none of them are going to call Kelly today because they're all going to call first thing in the morning. So we can just make love here in the basement. Mason, having admonished Ted and Eden and Sophia about calling Kelly all the time, picks up the phone and calls Kelly 1 second after midnight, Switzerland time. So it's still far earlier than Keith or Gina suspect that anyone would be calling Kelly. Kelly's very excited to hear from him, but Mason, I think, hears some clicking on the line, immediately thinks it may be bugged, and says, I think this would be best if this were our last call, and hangs up. We, of course, are seeing Gina and Keith untangling themselves from the floor, racing to get to that machine and press record just as Mason hangs up. So Keith is flummoxed once again in his attempt to have the money that he needs to keep Gina in the style that she's become accustomed to.
What I found most kind of fun about this episode is that not only is Keith living in the basement and having sex with Gina, but he has his cat down there too.
Mm-hmm. That is his cat, and the cat was named, I can't remember.
It was Laertes or something like that, I think, yeah.
And then he when Gina follows the cat down, he says something about Weasel is watching when Gina tries to kiss him, and she goes, I thought the cat was named Laertes. And he goes, no, my friend Weasel there, who's setting up the phone tap. And there's this scuzzy-looking guy. We had a full cast credits again today. Jake Morton is once again back, played by Rick Edwards in the credits, where he belongs. No other changes yet. And in the day player section, Otto was played by Weldon Blyler, and Weasel was played by Blackie Dammit.
And interestingly, to me anyway, Otto and Weasel actually have a lot more lines and screen presence than Lionel this episode. So
yeah, that was a weird scene of Lionel. I mean, presumably Lionel will follow Jane into that room tomorrow, but there really was no reason for Nick Coster to be on the set.
Yeah, it made me wonder if maybe they'd cut some scenes that he was supposed to be in or something like that.
Maybe they rejigged it and they pulled that one scene back from tomorrow's episode, which was, the one that he's actually in. So, but we of course are expecting Alice to be in an episode again soon. So
perhaps in mortal danger.
That's true. Will she come home? No, she's not home. Will she visit Lionel first and run into Jane and learn the truth? Or will that all be deferred by a traumatic, potentially kidnapping or something, hostage taking at Gus's apartment, which will then maybe give Carolyn some time to talk Jane out of telling Alice? That could be. We may find out as soon as episode 627. We will see you then.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 627 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired on Thursday, January 15th, 1987. Jane tells Lionel that Alice is her sister, and Lionel reveals he already knows, and that Carolyn has been trying to figure out how to tell her for weeks, which isn't exactly strictly true, but it's nice of Lionel to cover for her. Mm-hmm. But Jane seems to be much more annoyed than she should be with just that information, so Lionel wonders if there's something else. And of course there is something else. Jane knows that Carolyn just ignored the phone call when Alice was being sent to the hospital.
Yeah.
Jane does not let on about that. But she tells Carolyn that she is no longer her mother. Warren and Jane have a nice talk. I think they might be setting these two up as a couple.
I think so.
He tells her how he gambled away his family's entire fortune and everything the family owned. And then he asks if she wants to go for a bike ride, but she says she's got a lot to think about, but she says she definitely would want to do that on another occasion. And we learn that Lakin's bike is in the garage. Don't think that's important, but it's nice to have Lakin name checked, and one wonders, when will Lakin show up in Santa Barbara? Cruz and Eden tell Mason they are looking for the man who robbed the Orient Express. Mason invites Cruz to come to the courthouse today and see him in person. So Mason has basically spent the whole episode against, Julia, Cruz, and Eden, adamant that Gus is the guilty party. Cruz gets a call that the abandoned car has been found with blood in it. And he gets an officer who knows him to look the other way as he looks inside and finds the black ski mask. And they send it to be checked out. Now, this chain of custody of that ski mask is a little bit dodgy if you think about it, because if that other officer had at least watched Cruz find it, but he had his back turned. So, but I suspect that's not going to be the issue with the mask. I think Julia is excited about that mask discovery. Julia sends Alice to pick up clean clothes for Gus to wear to court. And here I was thinking something as terrible is going to happen to Alice. She walks into Gus's room. The robber hears her coming and is in a lot of pain, hides in the closet with his gun up. But Alice gets, I guess, a coat and a shirt from the closet without noticing the robber. And she leaves safely, having never spotted him.
Which is a relief, although I wonder if it's a teaser for him still being there when she comes back. And then you know how close she came the first time, and it makes it even worse when she is actually caught. That's what I think might happen.
They really kind of made it suspenseful when they were talking about who was going to go get the jacket, because at one point I think Julia was going to get it, and then suddenly Alice says, "Oh, I'll do it," or Gus says Alice can go, or something like that. So, and when Alice entered the room, she did see today's paper lying on the counter and just give it kind of an odd look, but maybe didn't process it thoroughly, and that may be something that she thinks about later. Hopefully she'll be smart enough to tell the police and not go back to investigate on her own.
And we just have to hope that the robber actually leaves the apartment after she leaves.
Yeah, because obviously with people coming and going, he must know it's not safe. And I think when they were looking at that ski mask, Cruz and Eden, the officer, I think, Cruz calls it in, and they mentioned that a bunch of pharmaceuticals were stolen that morning from a pharmacy, some bandages and things. So, and I think we see them too on the counter in the apartment, but I don't think we see them when Alice sees them. I think they were just there when the robber was using them. So, and then Carolyn shows up at the courthouse, and Alice wonders, "Why are you here?" She thinks it's because she wants to see Gus get thrown in jail. Now, this is all very odd, since Carolyn's the one who basically got him out of jail.
Yeah.
I don't know why one or more people would even think that she's trying to get him back in. Both Gus and Alice have now stated that. It's very goofy. They end up arguing, and Alice storms out of the hallway and into the courtroom. Gus is convinced that he'll be found guilty because the whole deck is stacked against him, but Julia gives him hope that, things are not the same as, when he went to jail the first time. Mason tries to psych out Julia before the trial because, as we know, he has some holes in his case. The trial begins, and Julia pleads not guilty on Gus's behalf. And the judge indicates, for our benefit, that it is not normal for a DA to be prosecuting a case such as this, but most of his staff are out with influenza right now. So it's a nice thing for them to put in, actually.
Yeah.
Julia asks for a continuance due to the finding of the mask, but the judge agrees with Mason's argument that there's not actually a link of any kind yet between Gus and the mask or the shooting the other night or the found car. Or at least not any link between the crime Gus is accused of. But he does adjourn court for the day, giving Julia, I think, about 18 hours, she said, to hopefully get some more evidence from the mask, maybe something they can use. The judge does admonish Mason and Julia for sniping at each other during the short amount of time they've already been in front of him. Mason tells Julia after the judge leaves that he thinks she has an attitude problem, and then asks her out to dinner and starts talking about, their agreement, and maybe they should try again, and it's too early to know if she's pregnant. And she is shocked that he's even going that way because she's so angry with him over this Gus thing. She says, "You are the least admirable man that I have ever met. I hope to God that I am not pregnant with your child."
Seems pretty conclusive.
Famous last words. Cruz and Eden hang out at the police station. They are kind of vibing. I think they may become detectives or something as a result of this. Carolyn offers Alice a ride home after the trial, and Alice declines. And Jane finds Alice sitting alone in the dark at the Lockridge house. So it's nice that she went there instead of home. But there's still a chance she may go home later. Carolyn arrives and watches them from the doorway. And Alice is talking to Jane about the fact that she never knew her mother. And Jane resists the urge to spill the news, but she says to Alice that she'll never be alone again. So I feel like what I took from this is that Jane is going to act like a sister to her. Whatever happens with Carolyn.
Yeah.
So I think at this point it would be better for Alice to know, because she's angry at Carolyn for fake things.
Well, yeah, it's just dragging it out, and the longer it gets dragged out, the more painful it will be, of course, when Alice does find out, which I think inevitably she will.
I think, maybe Jane and Lionel will talk it through, and they'll force Carolyn to just tell Alice.
Yeah.
I hope. Hopefully we'll find out soon. This is the Thursday episode. Presumably originally was planned to be a Wednesday. I don't know how long it would have taken them to reposition this. I was looking ahead for when the strike comes in 1988, and there's a good 3 or 4 weeks of pre-written scripts before these strike scripts start being used. So I feel like they would have to rejig things, like with this preemption that we had, or not preemption, but just a day lost that we had for the Iran-Contra hearings a couple of weeks ago. But, obviously you want your cliffhangers to be on a Friday. So, they may, I don't know how prevalent it was back then when everything was being done on videotape, to re-edit shows to maybe move some of the other people's plots to a later episode so you could pull your Friday cliffhanger back into position. It's a lot easier now where everything's digital to do that. And I think Days of Our Lives does that a lot. I mean, they go so far as to, just shoot things, for one character or maybe one actor who's only available for a day, and then move something else out of the way that already was planned to be in an episode to slot that in. So, we'll see if there's an obvious cliffhanger tomorrow, Friday, or Monday, and maybe we can figure out when they get back into sync with the Friday cliffhangers. So that's it. We will be back after we watch episode 628 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back.
Hello.
To finish week 129, we've watched episode 628 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Friday, January 16th, 1987. And this week, a lot of stuff happening at the Orient Express has been happening at a table in the bar area. And I realized that's probably because they needed room to build. You mentioned Johnny's, and I mentioned the courtroom. So I suspect where the main area of Orient Express is normally set up in the studio is where they have the courtroom, which is quite a lot. There's a courtroom, a hallway, and then a meeting room across the hallway. And it's a couple times they've shown people going from one room all the way to the other. Now, I don't know if they cut, to 3 different sets or if those are actually all laid out in one long set, because that hallway is pretty wide. It's almost as wide as the courtroom, probably. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of people eating at that one table. 2 different couples eat at that table today, right to the right of the bar. And we actually saw one shot from over the top of that table towards the bar, and we've seen, I think for the first time ever, the back and left side of that bar. So that's interesting. I wonder if they had to move something around for that, or if there's generally probably not a wall there, but maybe it was easy to put up. That'd be interesting to see the set someday. I wonder if anyone has those designs. Well, Cruz's snitch Sal has a line on the guy with the ring. I think he sends Cruz down to an alley, and he talks to another guy who saw the guy with the ring throw something into a dumpster in a certain alley. So Cruz and Eden spend a good part of the episode in a dumpster together, and this is all part of the Cruz and Eden do fun things together that we've seen them doing this week that leads me to believe they might start a detective agency. And
we have a sort of running joke throughout this episode about Eden spraying Cruz with some of her perfume to make him smell a little better
after they climb out of that dumpster, she unexpectedly douses him. They do find a paper bag from that pharmacy that was robbed the night of the shooting, or the next morning, and it has blood on it and what looks like a fingerprint. But unfortunately, the partial print they find does not match with anyone, or it's not enough to get a match, I guess. Presumably, they could show that it doesn't match with Gus, but I guess they know that because he was in jail. So I guess they still need to find a link between the Orient Express robbery and this other guy. When they arrive at the courthouse, Julia suggests to Cruz that he switch to another type of cologne. Gina and Keith continue to monitor the Capwell phone from the basement, where they spend much of the day making love, in violation of Gina's agreement with Cece, I should point out. Cece phones the house. He hasn't been on this week. A lot of times he's been on the other end of a call. We don't actually see him. So he phones the house and tells Mason that he thinks the phone might be bugged. So he and Sophia go over to the Capwell Hotel and hang around in front of the elevator lobby where there is a phone that Cece phones them on. And Sophia urges that they should still wait, just wait till the whole deal with Gina is over. It's only 3 more months. But Cece actually wants to move the kidnapping plan ahead a bit. He says there's no reason to wait. Now, I seem to recall they were waiting so that there'd be a holiday, so the townspeople in Switzerland wouldn't, risk being in the streets or something and spotting the plan. So, I don't know. We'll see if that puts a wrench into things. Mitchell is their man that was going to go and give Kelly the heads up in Switzerland, but he's stuck in Mexico or something. And so they need someone they can trust to go to Switzerland and tell Kelly. And I think Pearl was very happy to be the one asked to do that. So she points out that Pearl got Kelly to Mexico and back that one time when she was on the run. Mason is late to court due to his detour to the Capwell Hotel, so gets admonished by the judge. Eden tells Mason that she's going to testify for Julia, and Mason says that if Julia had a case, she wouldn't put Eden up on the stand in a million years. Julia is thrown off when Victoria arrives in the courtroom to watch Mason. He spends half the episode, having dinner with Victoria during the lunch break, I guess, and trying to get her to go home. The date of the robbery is said to be January 5th during the trial, so that's interesting. That's actually the day that the episode aired, which we know, of course, was supposed to have aired on January 6th, so I don't know if they've already made an adjustment here, or if, as often is when an episode continues over 2 days, it's the second day that's considered to be the date when it happened. So Julia tells the court that Gus's main goal right now is to be reunited with his daughter, so the last thing he would do is jeopardize that by doing something that could land him back in jail. And Eden testifies about her second voice identification, and Mason suggests that Cruz had undue influence over her. Now, a lot of this testimony stuff, they do a lot of, objecting to each other's tactics and things. And, of course, Eden tries to introduce the evidence about the fingerprint that's not allowed. And I think it's good that they chose for a judge trial because, the jury might, have picked up on a lot of these little things that got objected to, but the judge is, going to ignore them because that's his job. So I think it was a good choice not to go with the jury. Julia is worried, though, that fingerprint didn't pan out because I think she was kind of counting on that. Gus asks Julia to check on Alice at his place. Julia knocks on the door and, hearing no answer, tries the door. The robber gets his gun ready. Mm-hmm. So, originally I thought Alice might be the one in trouble, but maybe Julia will be.
Yeah.
Stuck there. Now, the thing is, she's expected back after lunch or whatever. Or hopefully it's not the dinner break.
Yeah, so she will be missed.
Mm-hmm. Someone will come to her rescue. And they know where she is, so those two things, that'll be good. Bored in the basement while Gina's off checking on Sophia, Keith puts on Gina's earrings. Later, Brandon finds him drinking a 1919 bottle of wine, and he tells Brandon that Cece sent him down there to check on the wine. He says, "You gotta drink a bottle every now and then to make sure that it hasn't gone bad." Gina arrives, and Keith's a little annoyed that she let Brandon down there, but by that point, while they're sniping, Brandon finds the tape recorder. And luckily, I think it's Gina that comes up with this very good response. She goes, "Oh, well, can you keep this a secret? Keith is actually building an entertainment center for CC. It'll have a big screen TV, 3 VCRs. So Brandon is very excited about this. Brandon's really good in this episode, I have to say.
And that was really quick thinking on Gina's part. And the only thing is, Brandon's so excited about this idea. I'm sure he will be bringing it up with Cece at some point.
Mm-hmm. Well, later we see Brandon carrying portable TV, which you remember, TVs had lead in them back then. I had a portable TV, not too much bigger than Brandon's, and it was very heavy. I wonder if they took the insides out for the actor, especially carrying them down those tile stairs. I don't know if that's real tile or some sort of show business magicry, but Sophia spots him carrying his TV down. He goes, "Oh, I'm going to give this to Tommy. I won't need it anymore." She says, "Oh, you're cutting back on TV?" No, I'm going to watch all my shows on... "Oh, nothing." But he walks out as Gina walks in, and no one really follows up on that. So Gina comes up with a really good plan. She decides to trick the Capwells into calling Kelly on that phone that they have tapped. So while Keith crinkles some paper to simulate static, or some plastic, she calls, Sophia answers, and pretends to be Kelly in distress and unable to speak properly.
And she does a really good job, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now,
Pearl is standing next to Sophia because she's just filled him in on this request to go to Switzerland for them. So Gina hangs up, and then Sophia is thinking, "Oh, we have to get back to camp, but we can't use this phone because Cece thinks it's tapped."
Now, Pearl also has inadvertently made his job a little more difficult in this episode by insisting that they call back Kelly.
And Pearl insists, we have to use this phone. It's an emergency. If we go somewhere else, she might not be at the number anymore. So Pearl talks her into doing it, and she gives Pearl the number. He's the one who dials. And Keith and Gina hear the way too many numbers being dialed and race to the tape recorder and turn it on. So I think we'll see the stuff with Kelly coming to some sort of exciting turn this week. Whether that it'll be two things at once, I guess. Keith trying to blackmail the Capwells while they're also doing the kidnapping thing.
Pearl is not my favorite character, so this was just, another thing for me that he's done.
Piano furnished by Schaefer and Sons.
We had a Judith McConnell sighting yesterday.
Yeah, we were watching Melrose Place. What we thought was the season 7 premiere, which was. It aired first in season 7. But we had thought that the conclusion of season 6 was a bit odd because we were like, there was no cliffhanger. We were expecting a bunch of people to leave the show. And so then I thought, well, last season had only 27 episodes or something, and the previous two had 34. So I counted 34 episodes. And the first 7 of season 7, based on the episode titles, make me think that those were originally going to air in season 6. And in fact, I looked it up and got confirmation from the internet. So anyway, what's known as season 701 had Judith McConnell as just a holidayer down in, I think it was the Dominican Republic, where Amanda went to get her divorce. And
yeah, she was playing sort of a wealthy socialite, and I think she had a little dog or something with her that she was hanging on to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I don't imagine. Well, they're still down there, so we may see her in the next episode. But I think the action's going to move off to the water.
Yeah.
Because everyone just left on a boat. So, so we saw both Julia and Sophia in this season of Melrose Place.
I think Julia was in the last season, wasn't she?
Well, was
with
it that long
that
ago?
character that we lost track of. Yeah.
Oh, was that season 5? Wow. It's getting to be a blur.
Yeah. It's not a great show, so we don't watch it that carefully, really.
I've seen it before. I don't remember anything that happened in these last seasons at all. I just remember some of the actors. There's still one actress, I think, who will join the show, but I have no idea who leaves. Diane looked something up, and she knows someone leaves soon, so... That is it for Melrose Place, Santa Barbara discussion. Week 130, back in the 80s. It was 1987, so in Kelowna, where I grew up, this summer will be the 10th anniversary of Endless Summer 77. And maybe I can fit into my Endless Summer 77 t-shirt that I wore when I was 10 for that week. So that's something to look forward to, and I've gotten my friend Garnet to help me recreate the famous ad for Dusty's nightclub in Kelowna that we will also be playing in, but I'll wait until it gets more summery.
So we can look forward to you wearing Endless Summer 77 t-shirt as a hat.
Armband. So, all right, we will see you for week 130 in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm not supposed to be down here either. Daddy says I might break one of those bottles. They're very, very expensive. Did you know that?
Yes, I knew that. I'm just down here checking to see if it's okay. Huh? It's fine. Hmm? You see, every once in a while you have to open up one of these. Make sure the whole thing hasn't gone bad.
It's time to rise and shine.
I'll rise, but I definitely will not shine. You just destroyed my REM sleep. That is the most important of all the 40 winks.